participants joining. Uh, and I welcome the respected jury members, the participants, Dr. Rinsen Chofal sir and Bikram sir uh, to this ceremony. And I would like now Bikram Srivastav sir to uh, tell us about the competition.
Thank you, Amit, for the introduction. And I take this opportunity to, thank all the panel of judges who agreed to be on the panel, and also the other support partners, Rise Up, Cummins, and especially SAIEVAC. So we have the privilege of having Dr. Rinchen Chopal with us today. As we all know, he's also the UN committee member on CRC. And I especially like to thank the panel of judges. So starting from Dr. Rinchen, then Mr. Ghulam Haider Jelani, who was the acting minister, Minister of Labor and Social Affairs, Afghanistan, ex-minister. And then Mr. AKM Masood Ali, Chair NSCG Bangladesh. Then Mr. Ranjan Mohanty, Chair NSCG EVAC India. Ms. Fatimat Yumna, Deputy Minister, Children and Family Protection Services, Ministry of Gender, Family and Social Services, Government of Maldives. Then Ms. Binu Maya Gurung, Chair NSCG Nepal. Mr. Saeed Istaq Gilani, who is also there, present with us, Chair NSCG Pakistan. Mr. Tangam Ponpandi, Co-Chair SACG and represent TDH Netherlands. Mr. Akmal Sharif, Country Director, Islamic Relief Worldwide, Bangladesh, and also convener APFC, Coalition of Sustainable Development. Mr. Nagaranjan Balanga, Vice President, HR Cummins India Limited. And briefly about the essay competition. So this was the 10th year of the essay competition, and we, for the last 9 years, we have been organizing such essay competition targeting primarily law students and human rights students to engage them and introduce them to the world of child rights law. And we all know as practitioners that it is not an area where people choose very readily. So we need to bring more people on the child rights domain with legal expertise and legal knowledge, so that the rights of children can get more louder and wider voices in different forums. So this is what we have been doing for last 9 years. And this being the 10th year, and we were just sharing with Dr. Inchin, and he proposed that you should now scale it up, and we should take it to the South Asia level. And being part of SAIEVAC for so many years now, so it was a very opportune thing for all of us. And we got fairly good representation from almost all the countries on this subject. And so thanks again to Dr. Inchin, and with that, I invite him for the opening remarks. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Vikram, and very good to see my very good friend Saeed Istaq Gilani ji live today. We keep in touch regularly, but very rarely see each other's face. But it's so heartwarming to see him again live today. And to all the young authors for this 10th essay competition, I want to start by thanking Vikram, my very good friend. He is more of a brother than a friend, who has continuously encouraged me and continuously inspired me with the essential nuances that are required to move this agenda of child marriage forward, particularly in the domain of legal review and reform. And even to a great extent, I would think with an element of judicial activism. I find that very refreshing, because most of the time we are bogged down with our own, thinking of age, what do we do in terms of social mobilization, about our focus on expressing our frustrations related to the increasing number of child marriages, while we have so much work that is being done. But I felt that getting out of this box and involving, people who are not necessarily always dealing with this issue, but can be directly or indirectly affected. I felt that the essay competition presented that opportunity. And therefore, this was the reason why I encouraged Vikram to involve SAIEVAC and SAIEVAC Regional Secretariat as well as SAIEVAC national mechanisms, and to bring on board the champions of the NACG leadership from the different countries to actually also be involved in facilitating this process. And I'm glad that we have reached the point where we are now going to announce the results. But I want to touch on two other small things. One is that for the information of everyone, the essay competition flyer, I had the privilege of taking it to the September CRC committee session, and I had all the committee members, including the chairs, pose with the flyer and to showcase South Asia's work on child marriage. And they were very, very, forthcoming and very kind to, extend their support. And hopefully at some point, we'll also be able to, when the essays are published, be also able to publish these posters and photographs of, support the committee extends. We also have excellent news actually from South Asia. Some of you may recollect, UNICEF through the global report on child marriage assessment, pre-COVID of course, showed that countries like India, Bangladesh, Nepal, who contributes a huge burden on child marriage globally, have made significant reductions in child marriage. And we also have Maldives, who is poised to achieve elimination and achieving SDG target. So South Asia is no longer the region that contributes the maximum burden. We have dropped below Africa now. But of course, the COVID pandemic does and will show some surprises because it has impacted child marriage and other violence against children significantly. So this is also something that we need to keep conscious of. But what I find this essay competition very exciting is that we'll be able to see different views and perspectives from all the young authors who have participated in this. And we'll be able to move this forward and find adequate and very appropriate platforms to share the thoughts and views of the young authors as we move this child marriage movement forward. And I also want to encourage all the young authors for not only, contributing to this essay competition, but also to become champions, to become advocates, to become change makers in your respective communities and societies and among your peers, to reach out with the message of why child marriage is harmful to the overall development and growth as well as aspirations of young people, particularly young girls in their lives. So I have reason to believe that we have now at least 15 champions that has been created through this 10th essay competition. So I'm very excited, and I hope that we will continue to move this forward. And for the information of the young champions, we have with us Syed Ishtaq Gilani ji, who is the chair of the NACG Pakistan. And NACG is the National Action and Coordinating Group for Ending Violence Against Children, which is the largest civil society platform at the country level, and collectively the largest civil society platform in the South Asia region. And the chairs in all the 8 countries contribute to becoming the pillar and support for the regional movement to end violence against children in South Asia. So I hope that this is some information to you. With this, now can I hand over to Vikram to move the agenda forward?
Yeah, so thank you so much. So Amit, what's the next?
We would now like to hear from the top five uh, that we have top five essays. So we have asked the top five authors to make a brief and very crisp presentation about themselves and their essays and their experience on how, if they have any incidences of child marriages that has happened around them or with their friends or peers. So in a very random order, I would like to have Toysha to make a brief presentation about herself, briefly introduce her, and about her essay. Over to you, Toysha.
Thank you. I'm Toesha Padukage. I'm from Sri Lanka, and I'm currently studying at the Sri Lanka Law College, and I'm a second year student. So first of all, I'm delighted to be here presenting at the seminar, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. So to talk about my essay, it is titled "Eliminating Child Marriages: The Roots and Reforms." I mainly highlight that although although South Asia has taken significant progress in reducing the rate of child marriages from 49% to 30%, there is still there is still room for improvement, and there are more actions necessary to eliminate child marriages in South Asia. So I also focused on the international standards on prohibiting child marriage, such as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and Convention on the Elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. Those instruments do specify as to that they recommend and encourage marriage between individuals of full age, but they do not specify as to what age is the recommended age. But we mostly accept 18 years or above as the legal age for marriage. But you can see that it is not not commonly practiced around South Asia because of social, cultural, and religious differences. And these practices that come from that has been existing for a long time, they are being continued by the people. So it is a question that need to be addressed, and it is not good for the children who goes through these child marriages. So in my paper, I make 3 key recommendations, and the first one being promoting public awareness about child marriage as a human rights issue, and to educate the parents and the adults as to the harmful impacts on the children, mentally and also physically. And secondly, I feel that implementing a solid legal framework to eliminate child marriage is a must, especially adequate marriage registration and birth registration systems that are up to date. Those I feel that those are essential for a legal system. And lastly, I want to look at the last recommendation, that is empowering women and providing them education and providing them a path to go to their goals without being pressured from the society to get into marriage. So that's basically discussed in my paper, and I encourage you to have a look at it. And that concludes my presentation. And thank you all for listening and giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Toisha. Thank you. And we would like to now hear from Rajeta. Rajeta, please introduce yourself and very briefly tell us about your essay.
Good morning. Am I audible?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Good morning, members of the jury. I'm Rajita Shukla. I'm from India, Kanpur, Uttar Pradesh. And I'm a second year law student at Tamil Nadu National Law University. And I now realize that the presentation I've made is extremely detailed and probably would not fit in very well here. But what I can do is I can try to run you through it briefly in 3 to 4 minutes. And what I can show you through it, because essentially my paper focused on my country. And the thing is, India actually forms a case study for all of South Asia, because what I have tried to show is suggesting legal reforms essentially. So what I've tried to do is show how through legal reforms there can be a change made in the amount of child marriages that occur annually in India, and I've tried to show how there have been the entire premise of my paper is to show how India is actually facilitating child marriages instead of controlling them through its laws. So I've recommended certain measures to ensure that that does not happen. I cannot share my screen for some reason, sir. Is there a way that I can do so? I cannot hear you, sir.
He's muted.
Sorry. Rajeta, can you briefly and quickly take us through your presentation? Give us an oral presentation about your essay. Okay, very brief.
All right. So first of all, what I've tried to do is I've tried to examine the positive obligation of the state to the Paris Patronage Doctrine, which essentially states that the states who have a lot of power as compared to the common people have a positive obligation to protect vulnerable communities such as children, and that comes under the positive obligation of the state. After that, I've tried to outline a brief collection of rights which essentially state that there should be no child marriage. And after that, I've tried to look at international frameworks which say that there shouldn't be any child marriage. I've tried to look at CEDAW, CRC, and after that, I've recommended a list of measures. So for the sake of conciseness, I just tell you the list of measures that I have under it. And essentially, the list of measures that I've tried talking about include compulsory registration of marriages. And but before I go into any of that, I'm very sorry, this is not very structured, but I'll try to explain it to you very briefly what the issue I think is. Essentially, the Indian legal system has a huge problem, and I think it is something that can be found in common in all of South Asian nations, is that there's personal law versus progressive thought. And progressive thought essentially indicates that child marriages should not be legal. But we see how under the garb of personal laws, we see child marriages continuing to exist. And when we finally, and then I've also examined through CEDAW how the committee which implemented CEDAW stated that Article 2 and 16 are essentially the core of CEDAW, which has been implemented with declarations in certain countries, such as India and Bangladesh, which have high levels of child marriage. So once we see how all of this is linked to personal law, it becomes very clear that the issues that exist in the legal system are essentially because of personal laws. Because we see that even though child marriage, and more than that, even the secular legislation in India, such as the PCMA, that is Prohibition of Child Marriage Act 2006, doesn't make child marriages void, but voidable at the option of the contracting party, which is a minor. So this brings to fore the idea that if the child marriage is avoidable, then that is essentially the state sanctioning child marriages instead of actively prohibiting them. And this essentially shows how the state is actively abdicating its duty to stop child marriages and not enforce them. So this comes within the idea that the recommendation that can be made, because I would like to firstly state that child marriage is an extremely complex issue in India, because we have extremely different religious communities, and because of this, a lot of times there have been very inconsistent judgments by the high courts, which state that in certain cases child marriages can be held void under the PCMA because religious laws are subsumed under it, whereas certain high courts state that religious laws are above the PCMA, because the PCMA only explicitly talks about the Hindu Marriage Act and no other act. So this essentially brings the idea that there should be a conclusive Supreme Court judgment about this, which states the extent of the application of the PCMA. And once we have that application, then we can know which under which laws are child marriages actually prohibited. And once we finally have that clarity in mind, we can see how, because there is inconsistent application of such laws, there is pervasiveness of child marriage in India. And this is also being increased because of the pandemic, etc. So finally, when it came down to it, I came to a recommendation that because we have different religious communities in India, and we also see persecution of people who actually run away from homes because of them marrying undesirable people. Essentially, to be very honest, there's a law in the US that is called Romeo and Juliet laws, under which if somebody runs away with somebody who's close to their age, suppose say a girl is 16 and a boy is 18 and they run away, then in India they get persecuted under the PCMA, and that is not a very healthy use of this, because most of the times the courts have upheld the PCMA to ensure that undesirable couples do not get married, which does not actually fulfill the objective of preventing child marriages. So this is why I would like to reinforce the Law Commission, the 205th Law Commission's recommendation that there should be void marriages up until 16, and 16 to 18 should be voidable and court approved. Court approved marriages is something that I've included myself, because court approved ensures that parents cannot sanction marriages between 16 to 18. And this essentially would ensure a strong legal framework so that there is no continuance of child marriage per se. So to be very honest, the common threads that I found in South Asia and India was the pervasive influence of personal laws in actually promoting child marriages. And I think that India is a hub of doing that. So I feel and the thing is, Indian laws have always had an influence on the geopolitical region. So if India implements such reforms, it can actually have a ripple effect and actually increase the stringent effect of such laws. So this is why, first of all, I'd like to state that the legislations which do in fact prohibit child marriages should be more strict, and because there are certain provisions which allow people to get away with it. And secondly, I'd like to say that there should be a healthy respect for autonomy of the people who choose to undergo child marriage because of certain other reasons, like they should not be persecuted simply because they're doing it simply because they're marrying somebody who is in a different community. So that would be my entire idea behind this. Thank you for giving me so much time, and I apologize for taking up too much time if I had.
Thank you, Rajita. I would like now Bisma to share her thoughts on child marriage and the contents of her essay.
Hello, everyone.
Keep it very brief, Bisma.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Me, myself is Bisma Javed. Actually, I am a student of law, fourth year, doing LLB from Fatma Jinnah Women University, Rawalpindi, Pakistan. And I'm very glad to hear that I am being a part of the top 5 essay writers in that competition. And I'm actually making a short presentation with respect to my essay. Basically, this essay is analyzing a 3 different perspectives. First of all, I'm giving a presenting view with respect to what are essentially driving factors with respect to the child marriages within the region, applying in all the South Asian countries, which are basically, first of all, is a poverty, there is a lack of economic development in these countries. There is illiteracy, lack of education, lack of awareness. There is no proper management with respect to the proper registration of the birth and as well as the marriage one. Then I am discussing about what are the consequences over the children when they are entering into full way of just selling out your daughters to just for the sake of a money as well. And what are the consequences? You are basically lacking your children from their childhood. This is basically this is a stage at which you have to learn the children. You have to give a proper growth in their minds with respect to the life. And in that stage, the boys and the girls, they are indulging in such a type of activity, and they're entering into a forceful sexual enforcement and the premature pregnancy, which leads toward the health problems, especially in the girls, and they are just only confined to the domestic level, and they are not play important role toward the development of the country, because they are just only confined to the domestic households work, and they are just only confined to the birthing or prematuring birthing of the child as well. Then I am discussing what type of the recommendations. As we see that along these different countries in the South Asian region, they are collaborate with the UNICEF, and UNICEF play a very important role. They introduce a different policies, plans, national action plans are also taken up at that stage, and there is a reduction in the stage of the child marriages rate in the South Asian regions, but there is still need of the prevalent rate to be reduced in that region. So that I have to recommend the certain points of view with respect to reduce the child marriages rate in that region. First of all, I have to recommend that basically we have laws, but there is a proper introduce in order to be take the steps in order to enforce a strict penalty over them. So that's why they are preventing from doing it. And then we have to make a such certain policies with the international subjects as well. And international subjects, one of the example is the UNICEF, that they have brought different policies in the South Asian regions, but there is important thing that they have at the state level. We consider that there is a relationship of state and the citizens, which have to be built up a relationship of right and duties. There is a right of the citizens, which is a duty of the state in order to protect it. So state is a custodian. They have to refer the different agencies, they have to refer the different NGOs, they have to refer the different organizations which kept an eye over the certain regions, especially in the rural areas, because in the rural areas there is a system of selling the children just for the sake of the money as well. So there is a need of the proper enforcement through a different agencies, through a different laws, as well as through there is a part at the role of the citizens as well. The citizens should be aware about it, through which we have to enable them in order to keep a check and balance with the help of a media as well. We have to ensure by making a different programs at the media through which we have to make a awareness among the citizens. So that's why they are preventing from it, and instead of considering considering the daughters as a burden, they have to lead toward giving them education, because they also play a very important role in the society when they are getting properly education, and they have to enhance their skills as well. Thank you. This is all from my side. Thank you for hearing.
Now I would like to hear from Maheen Khan. Maheen, please briefly introduce yourself and about your essay. Please keep it very short.
Sir, can I present my presentation?
Yeah, you can.
Like I can share it? Okay.
Yes, you can. Please do. But then keep it very short.
Okay, then I will go orally because it is
Okay.
a bit long. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to present my basic focus around the essay and the recommendations that I gave in my essay. First of all, I would like to congratulate you all for the National Human Rights Day. And in my essay, I basically focused on what is child marriage. Child marriage is basically a forced alliance and is still prevalent in our society. And it is one of the social evils in our society and is spreading its tentacles through the innocence, feeding on the innocence of small children. As Mr. Rinchan also said that it is prevalent in our society, and South Asian countries like India, Bangladesh, etc. have the 50% contribution towards global child marriage. Hello, am I audible? Hello?
Yes, you are, Maheen.
Okay. Yeah, I was saying that
Yes.
South Asian countries like India, Bangladesh, Pakistan have almost like 50% contribution towards global child marriage. And if we, like my base essay focuses on why it is still prevalent in our country, India. So traditions basically play a major role. Like people believe that marrying children at a young age will enhance the understanding and affection between the couple. This is not a new concept. India has been practicing this child marriage since the ancient era for creating alliances and gaining political power and wealth, etc. Also, dowry system is also prevalent in our country. The younger the girl is, the lesser will be the amount of dowry. And also, as like there is a fear of unacceptable relationships in our country. Our country hasn't still progressed in accepting love relationships. like their parents or the society doesn't allow children to choose their partners. And another thing, religious beliefs. We are like India is a land of diversities. We have all kind of religion. So child marriage is not just restricted to one religion. Each and every religion has its equal contribution. These scholars, the religious scholars and practitioners, they kind of brainwash parents and people in the society to force children to get married early. And another thing is the